There are 3 stages in a woman's life when her need for connection with a man becomes much more intense. The harsh reality explained in depth. There are 3 very specific moments in a woman's life when the desire to be in a relationship increases considerably. And this doesn't happen by chance. It's not just emotional. It's also psychological and biological. If you're a man who doesn't understand these stages, you'll continue to misinterpret women's behavior time and time again. Many men believe that women seek relationships in the same way throughout their lives, but that idea is completely wrong. Science shows a very different reality. Developmental psychologists at the University of Chicago studied how women's motivation in relationships changes with age and found something that is almost never openly discussed. A woman's desire for a partner doesn't remain constant. It clearly intensifies in 3 specific and predictable stages. And most importantly, what she wants in each of those phases changes completely. What they discovered even surprised several of the researchers. The study, which tracked over 2,000 women across different age groups, revealed patterns so consistent that they could predict with remarkable accuracy what a woman would prioritize in a partner based solely on her age and life circumstances. This wasn't just about cultural norms or social pressure. This was about something far deeper, something rooted in the very fabric of human development. The researchers found that these shifts weren't merely influenced by society. They were driven by neurological changes, hormonal fluctuations, and the natural progression of emotional maturity that every human being experiences. And yet, most men go through their entire lives completely unaware of this pattern. They stumble through relationships, confused by why a woman who seemed so interested suddenly changed her priorities. They blame themselves. They blame her. They blame bad luck. But the truth is far simpler and far more predictable. They simply didn't understand the stage she was in. Let's start with the first stage between the ages of 18 and 22. This is the exploration phase. During this period, the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for planning and long-term decisions, is still developing. Therefore, much of her attention is focused on the present. She seeks experiences, romance, and emotional intensity. She isn't thinking too much about where she'll be in 5 years. She's focused on what excites her right now. At this stage, she's not usually looking for a lifelong committed relationship. She's accumulating experiences, and the type of man she's attracted to tends to reflect exactly that. A man who brings excitement, energy, and enthusiasm to the present. She's drawn to novelty, to the thrill of new connections, to the electricity of a first kiss, or a spontaneous adventure. This is the stage where emotions run high and logic often takes a back seat. She's learning about herself through her interactions with others. Every relationship, every flirtation, every heartbreak is a lesson. She's not just dating, she's discovering what she likes, what she doesn't like, and who she wants to become. The men who succeed at this stage are the ones who understand that they are part of her journey, not the destination. They don't try to lock her down or pressure her into commitment. They enjoy the ride. They bring energy and excitement, and they let her come to her own conclusions about what she wants. But this is where everything starts to change. Because around the age of 23, something begins to shift. The prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain responsible for long-term planning, finally reaches full maturity. And suddenly, the future doesn't seem so far away anymore. The carefree exploration of her early clears throat. 20 starts to feel less satisfying. She begins to wonder what comes next, and that wondering sets the stage for the second phase. The second stage occurs between the ages of 25 and 30. This is where many things begin to transform. Her environment changes. Her friends start getting married, and people close to her begin starting families. At the same time, what many call the biological clock, something neuroscientists confirm exists and is not simply a social myth, begins to create a silent but constant sense of urgency. Researchers at Columbia University, analyzing female attachment and bonding patterns, discovered that during this stage, women stop seeking only emotional connection. They begin, often unconsciously, to evaluate men from a different perspective. Now they look at long-term potential, stability, character, and future security. The same woman who at 21 pursued intense emotions begins at 28 to value reliability. That's why, if you've ever seen a woman suddenly change her expectations or raise her standards, it didn't happen by chance. There's a reason behind that change. This is the stage where the phrase, "I'm ready to settle down," starts appearing in conversations. It's not just a line. It's a genuine shift in priorities. The women at this stage have experienced enough to know what they don't want. They've dated the exciting but unreliable guy. They've been through the passionate but chaotic relationship, and now they're looking for something different. They want a partner who can build a life with them, not just share a moment. They're thinking about mortgages, about careers, about children, about the kind of future they want to create. And they're evaluating every potential partner through that lens. This is why many men find themselves suddenly rejected by a woman who seemed interested just a few months earlier. It's not that she changed her mind about him. It's that she changed her priorities and he didn't change with her. The man who was perfect for her at 22 is no longer what she needs at 28. And that's not a reflection of his worth. It's a reflection of her evolution. The men who navigate this stage successfully are the ones who demonstrate stability without being boring, reliability without being predictable, and ambition without being consumed by it. They show her that they can be both exciting and stable, both passionate and dependable. They don't try to compete with the ghosts of her past relationships. They simply show up as the man who can give her what she now realizes she truly wants. This is also the stage where women often experience what relationship experts call the panic. It's that sudden, visceral fear that time is running out. Even women who never wanted children can experience this panic because it's not just about reproduction. It's about the fear of being left behind. It's about watching friends move forward while they feel stuck. It's about wondering if they missed their chance. This panic can lead to rushed decisions, to settling for the wrong partner, or to desperate attempts to make a relationship work that should have ended years ago. And that's where the third stage comes in. And then comes the third stage between 38 and 45. This is probably the most misunderstood phase of all. By this point in life, she has lived long enough to have clarity. She has built something of her own. Perhaps she's already experienced love, heartbreak, or even both. And then she arrives at what many women consider one of the most important and revealing moments of their lives. Her priorities shift again. She's no longer trying to impress anyone. She's looking for emotional security, not necessarily in financial terms, but in the emotional peace a person can offer her. She begins to value stability, presence, and authenticity. Psychologists call this the shift toward authenticity. At this stage, superficial attraction loses much of its power, and emotional depth becomes what truly matters. The women at this stage have lived enough to know that love isn't about grand gestures or sweeping romance. It's about showing up consistently. It's about being reliable. It's about knowing that when things get hard, their partner will still be there. They've been through the ups and downs of life. They faced career setbacks, family losses, health scares, and the general chaos that comes with being human. They've learned that the man who looks good on paper isn't always the man who shows up when it counts. And they've become ruthless about what they will and won't accept. This stage is also marked by a profound sense of self-awareness. Women in their late 30s and early 40s often report feeling more confident and self-assured than ever before. They know who they are. They know what they want. And they know what they will not tolerate. This clarity can be intimidating to men who are used to being chased or who rely on their ability to impress. Because at this stage, she's not impressed by flashy cars or expensive dinners. She's impressed by emotional intelligence. She's impressed by the man who can sit with her in silence and still feel connected. She's impressed by the man who can handle her emotions without running away or trying to fix them. She's impressed by the man who has done his own inner work and is not looking for her to complete him. This is the stage when many women finally understand the quote, "The most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself." And they've reached a place where they're not willing to compromise that relationship for anyone. This is also the stage where women who have been through divorce or long-term relationships that failed have a particularly sharp perspective. They've been through the fire, and they've come out the other side. They know what doesn't work, and they're not interested in repeating old patterns. They want something real, something grounded, something lasting, and they're willing to wait for it. The men who succeed at this stage are the ones who are comfortable in their own skin. They don't need to prove anything. They don't need to be the center of attention. They can hold space for her without needing to fill the silence. They can be vulnerable without being weak. They can lead without being controlling. They have done the work on themselves, and it shows. Now, this is the reality every man should understand. If you meet a woman at any of these stages and don't understand what she truly needs at that point in her life, you'll end up taking her behavior personally. You'll think she's complicated or inconsistent. But the truth is, she isn't. She's simply reacting to a phase of life that no one taught you to understand. The problem is that most men have never been given this framework. They approach every woman the same way, regardless of her age, her life experience, or her current priorities. And then they wonder why their approach works on one woman and fails miserably on another. It's not that the women are different. It's that the stages are different. A woman at 22 is looking for excitement. A woman at 28 is looking for stability. A woman at 40 is looking for authenticity. And if you're offering excitement to a 28-year-old who wants stability, you'll be rejected. If you're offering stability to a 22-year-old who wants excitement, you'll be seen as boring. If you're offering anything less than authenticity to a 40-year-old who's been through it all, you'll be dismissed. This is not about changing who you are. It's about understanding who you're dealing with and what they need. It's about recognizing that the same man can be perfect for one woman and completely wrong for another. Not because he's changed, but because she's at a stage. And here's the hard truth. A woman who seems deeply connected to you at one stage can naturally drift away at another. Not necessarily because you've done something wrong, but because her needs have changed over time. The men who manage to avoid confusion and disappointment are those who understand this pattern. They don't rely solely on the right moment. They build connections based on a genuine understanding of the other person. Because in the end, the real question was never, what does she want? The real question was always, what stage of her life is she in right now? Let's break this down even further. Because understanding the stages is one thing, but knowing how to apply that understanding in real life is something else entirely. If you're a man in your 20s dating women in their early 20s, you need to understand that you're in the exploration phase with them. You're not building a life. You're building experiences. And the women you're with are doing the same thing. This is not the time to push for commitment or to try to lock things down. This is the time to be present, to be fun, and to let things unfold naturally. If you try to force a commitment at this stage, you'll push her away. She's not ready, and she won't be until she's gone through the process herself. If you're a man in your late 20s or early 30s dating women in that same age range, you need to understand that the game has changed. You're no longer in the exploration phase. You're in the evaluation phase. She's looking at you with different eyes. She's thinking about the future. She's asking herself whether you're someone she can build a life with. This means you need to show her that you're stable, that you're reliable, and that you have a vision for your future. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be serious. You need to show her that you're not just a boy playing games, but a man who knows what he wants. If you're a man in your 40s or older dating women in that same age range, you need to understand that she's looking for something entirely different. She's not impressed by your job title or your car. She's impressed by your emotional intelligence. She wants to know if you can handle her complexity, if you can sit with her in silence, if you can be vulnerable without falling apart. She wants a partner, not a project. She wants someone who has done their own work and who is ready for something real. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. These stages aren't just about age, they're about life experience. A woman who has been through a divorce at 35 may have the priorities of a woman in her 40s, even though she's technically younger. A woman who has been married and had children early may be ready for the third stage much earlier than her peers. The stages are about lived experience, not just chronological age. That's why it's so important to pay attention to the woman in front of you, not just her age. Listen to what she says. Notice what she values. Watch how she responds to different things. She will tell you what stage she's in, even if she doesn't use those words. She will show you through her questions, her priorities, and her reactions. The key is to be present enough to notice. Most men are so focused on what they want that they miss the obvious signs of what she needs. They hear her say she's looking for something serious, and they interpret that as she wants me to propose tomorrow. But what she's actually saying is, I want to know that you're not wasting my time. They hear her say she needs space, and they interpret that as she's losing interest. But what she's actually saying is, I need to figure out if I can trust you with my vulnerability. The Stoic principle of listening, truly listening, applies here more than anywhere else. The Stoics understood that wisdom begins with observation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And part of that power is the ability to observe without judgment, to see what is actually happening instead of what you fear is happening. When you can do that, you can see the stage she's in, and you can respond accordingly. The other thing to understand is that these stages are not rigid. A woman can move back and forth between them, depending on what's happening in her life. A breakup can push her back into the exploration phase. A new job or a major life change can push her into the evaluation phase. A health scare can push her into the authenticity phase. Life is not linear, and neither are these stages. This is why flexibility is so important. The man who is rigid in his approach, who tries to use the same strategy with every woman, will fail. The man who is adaptable, who can read the situation and adjust accordingly, will succeed. This is not about manipulation. It's about understanding. It's about recognizing that people are complex and that their needs change with time and circumstance. It's about being the kind of man who can meet her where she is, not where you wish she was. But here's the most important part of all of this. None of these stages mean that a woman doesn't want love. They don't mean that she's incapable of commitment or that she's looking for a free ride. They simply mean that her priorities shift as she grows. And if you're a man who is serious about building a meaningful relationship, you need to understand that shift. You need to be able to grow with her. The men who fail are the ones who stay stuck in one stage while she moves forward. He's still acting like he's 22 when she's ready for what comes at 30. He's still acting like he's 30 when she's ready for the depth of 40. And she leaves. Not because she doesn't love him, but because he can't meet her where she is. This is why self-awareness is so important. If you don't understand your own stage, if you don't understand what you truly want, you won't be able to recognize what she truly needs. You'll project your own desires onto her, and you'll be confused when she doesn't respond the way you expect. Take the time to know yourself. What do you want at this stage of your life? What do you need? What are you looking for? And then ask yourself whether the woman you're with is looking for the same thing. If she's not, you have two choices. You can try to change her, which will never work, or you can accept that you're in different places and act accordingly. That might mean walking away. That might mean giving her space. That might mean being patient and letting things unfold. But whatever you do, don't pretend that the differences don't exist. That path leads only to frustration and heartbreak. In the end, the real lesson is this. Women are not confusing. They are not mysterious. They are simply human beings who are navigating the same messy, unpredictable journey of life that you are. And their needs change over time just like yours do. The difference is that women are often more attuned to these changes. They notice the shift. They feel it and they act on it. Men, on the other hand, often miss the signals. They get comfortable. They assume that because something worked yesterday, it will work tomorrow. And when it doesn't, they're blindsided. Don't be that man. Be the man who pays attention. Be the man who understands that a woman's needs at 22 are not the same as her needs at 30, which are not the same as her needs at 40. Be the man who can adapt, who can grow, who can meet her where she is. And in doing so, you will find that you don't just understand women better, you understand yourself better, too. Because the same principles that apply to her growth apply to yours. You're not the same man you were 10 years ago. You shouldn't expect her to be the same woman she was 10 years ago, either. Growth is a gift. Embrace it in yourself and in her. And let that understanding be the foundation of something real, something lasting, something that can weather the changes that life will inevitably bring.